Hey everyone, this is Eric B. Horn, founder of Eric B. Horn Incorporated, and welcome to another episode of AskEricB. Usually the overall concept of AskEricB is my audience will ask questions and I will answer it based off of their career and the challenges that they are currently facing. However, today I have a very special guest, so I definitely wanted to alter the original format of the show. Today I have Fred Mwangaguhunga. Sorry, I apologize. I was practicing all night. He's a serial entrepreneur. He received his JD and MBA from Columbia University, then transitioned into the lovely world of corporate America as a corporate attorney in Wall Street. And now he's a serial entrepreneur, being successful in starting his own door-to-door laundry service that catered to the stars such as Mariah Carey and other superstars. And now he is the thriving founder of MediaTakeout.com, which in my opinion is one of the best online entertainment blogs. So if you wanted to know anything from Kim Kardashian to other famous people, this will be the website to go to. So Fred, thank you for your time and energy. I definitely appreciate it. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and it's a pleasure to be here.
I definitely appreciate it. So like I said previously, the gist of the show is more geared towards me giving advice to college graduates. However, looking at your bio, it's all about transitioning, because most people, once they graduate from college and they're in their corporate career or nonprofit career, they tend to stay there without, having the ambition and the overall mindset to become an entrepreneur. With that being said, based off of your success and the challenges that you faced, what do you think will be the initial mindset that an entrepreneur needs to have? Not just someone that is on Facebook and taking pictures that they're grinding and things of that nature. When someone decides that they want to become an entrepreneur and a successful entrepreneur, then that they have certain mindsets and traits. So what are some of the traits that you developed once you made the transition to becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing is to really kind of go into it 100%. I think a lot of times people, especially if you have a good job or if you have a degree behind you or a profession behind you, you always look at entrepreneurship as kind of something on the side to do, right? Like I'm going to kind of continue doing my main gig and then I'm going to kind of play around in this thing on the side. Right. And, I think that's a great way to kind of get introduced to entrepreneurship. But before you take that step, you really have to kind of commit to it 100% of yourself. Yeah. And I think probably one of the biggest mistakes that I see young entrepreneurs do is they don't really do that, right? They try and kind of keep one or two things going at a time. And, the one thing that I like to say to people is entrepreneurship is not a hustle. There's nothing wrong with a side hustle to kind of get a couple of dollars, whatever. That's fine. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But if you're going to create a business, if you're going to create value in a business, if you're going to create the kind of business that's going to go on and have a legacy behind it, you're going to have to really commit to it in a way that you don't really commit to your hustles. So, if you're young or you're just graduating school, or if maybe you've been in a career for some time and you're looking to make the transition, like I said, I think it's fine initially to kind of play around with or to get introduced to entrepreneurship as something on the side. Right. But before you really if you ever want to create a really successful company or create a successful business, which I think most people do, you really have got to commit to it 100%. You have to commit all of your time to it. You have to commit all of your money to it. You have to commit all of your resources to it. And you have to hope that at the end of the day, if you do that, that you'll be able to reap the rewards. But I can guarantee you that if you don't commit to it 100%, your competitors, the people that you're competing with, they are going to commit to it 100%. And it's going to be very difficult for you to ever win.
And just to piggyback off you said, commitment is the number one thing. And in this day and age, people think entrepreneurship is a fad or a trend, knowing that, hey, I have this concept, I have this idea, even though ideas are great, but ideas are nothing without the commitment and the overall execution of that idea. And also embracing lessons learned. I don't want to say failures, because the only time someone would fail if they would quit. And a lot of entrepreneurs, if it doesn't work that very first time, or if their first contract or business deal isn't worth $100 million, they kind of bow out. So the commitment piece is probably one of the strongest mindsets that someone needs to have. I mean, you need to be in it 150% and don't let anything stop you, because one of the biggest things that I tell my mentees who are in the process of starting the business, this is a marathon, not a sprint. So if it looks good on Instagram right now, if they're just doing it just to get some attention, they're in it for the wrong reasons. I tell them, are you willing to not get paid based off of what you're doing for the next 5 to 7 years? And usually when I ask them that question, they kind of hesitate, because they're thinking, okay, like I'm in the music industry or I'm in the entertainment industry. I'm going to go from cutting my first demo to being signed with Jay-Z. It doesn't work like that. So, but the blood, the sweat, the tears, and the overall, back to your word, commitment is huge. And I mean, people need to teach a class just on being committed, because a lot of people have no idea what that is. So definitely that's a great answer.
I completely agree. I think that, just kind of really coming in and committing yourself to it is, I think, a really big part of it. But I think a lot of times you find a lot of people that go into it and they are willing to commit, but they don't really know how, right? So you find people that have been entrepreneurs or kind of doing their own thing for 12 years, 15 years, and they've never really gotten the success out of it. And they haven't really developed the sort of skills that they needed to develop over those years. Right. So that they can actually build a successful company. So I think that there's really two sides to it. I think one of it is definitely commitment, but I think the other side of it is, just really learning how to do it. I mean, the one thing that I like to tell a lot of people is I look at entrepreneurship as a skill set like being a lawyer or a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor, you actually have a school to go to. So you go to school for 3 years, and then you take an exam at the end of 3 years, and then maybe you take an internship after that. And then after all of that time, you become a lawyer or a doctor. Right. But entrepreneurship doesn't really work like that. The way that I looked at it is your schooling, your internship, or your failed businesses, right? So, right. If you look at most of the research, they say that when an entrepreneur is successful in his third or her third business, right? So that means you went through 2 businesses that didn't make it, right? And the third one is when it popped off. Now, what really happened during those first 2 businesses where they may have not made it is you learned a lot of really hard lessons, right? Lessons about yourself that you might not have otherwise have just accepted, and lessons about kind of the world of entrepreneurship. Right. And so after your first business, generally you're more successful in your second business if you learn anything from it. And then by the time you get to your third business, you really have built the kind of skills that you have to be able to create a successful business. You realize, or you've learned all those hard lessons. You learn the hard lessons of running out of money. You learn and why it's so hard, so important to budget and make sure that you spend money as frugally as you possibly can, especially when you're an entrepreneur. You learn the lessons about building a good team. You learn the lessons of what happens when you have a bad partner. You learn those lessons, and those are lessons that I can tell people right now, right? But when you're an entrepreneur and you have a great idea, or what you believe to be a great idea, it's hard to kind of let a lot of that seep in.
Right.
So you really have to learn on your own, and you have to kind of face the consequences of the learning on your own. And then, like I said, you graduate to the next level. And I think by the time you kind of amass all of these lessons together, you can now say, I am an entrepreneur, and I'm not an entrepreneur because I say I am. I've actually graduated. I've actually taken the internship, and I actually have the skills to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, I have the battle scars to prove it. Yeah, definitely. So let me transition and dig a little bit deeper with regards to you from a entrepreneurial standpoint, because one of the key things that I try to empower people on is understanding their why. What's important to you in your life, and what is the overall reason why you're doing what you're doing? Because if you don't have that core piece, when times get rough, you're just going to fold and give up. But if you know for a fact that I'm doing this business because this is something that is a dream of mine, and, I'm putting everything into it. Knowing your why will help you get past the rough spots. So specifically for you, what inspired you to transition from being a high-powered lawyer in Wall Street to a serial entrepreneur? Because there is a definite reason why, to coincide with the overall mindset that you have as an entrepreneur.
Well, I truly believe that entrepreneurs are kind of born and not made. Whether or not you accept your calling to be an entrepreneur is something that is up to you. So let's assume that we're talking to people that really have always felt somewhere inside them, deep inside of them, that they're an entrepreneur. They want to be an entrepreneur, so that they have that calling. How do you make it? I think for me it was a lot of people look at my story and they say, wow, Fred, you had a really well-paying job, you had a degree that was going to take you places. Why did you essentially basically gave it all up and you turned to entrepreneurship? Wasn't that a hard decision for you to make? And to me, I say, no, it wasn't a hard decision to make, because I never really believed that I'd ever reach my full potential in the career field that I was. So I thought that if I stayed on, and I stayed on as a corporate attorney, I would have done fine. I would have done relatively good work. I wouldn't have been a superstar. I don't believe that I would have been. But I would have been good enough maybe to hold on to a job, maybe go from one job to another job, right, and be able to eke out a decent living for myself and my family. And that's not what I was interested in. I wanted to really maximize my own potential. And I knew where my potential lied. I knew that it was with entrepreneurship. And so I was kind of faced with kind of a binary decision, right? It was, on one side, I can kind of go out there and live kind of the mediocre life, or, relatively mediocre life that the path that I'm on. Or I can take the chance to kind of go out there and go and try and fulfill my dreams. And given that those two things is a choice, the choice was clear to me. I mean, remember, at the time I was also in my 20s, right. No kids, no family. There was really nothing there, and I had a decent savings underneath me too. So if I were to fail completely, I could always start another business, or I could go back and practice law. So there was always that kind of fallback there, although I didn't really look at it like that.
Okay.
So the decision was, like I said, it was, when given the opportunity to live an extraordinary existence, you take it, and that's what I did.
Okay. And it was definitely a risk. And you know what they say, no risk, no reward. So it is good for people to take risks, but like you said, have some sort of contingency plan. I'm all about contingency. So if A doesn't work, what can I do? What can I have with B and C that can help sustain me to get back to A? So it's you never lose sight on what the initial goal is. But, I understand people want to go all in, but when it comes to someone, if they're single, they can they can put all their money in and eat, noodles for the next 2 to 3 months. However, if you have, family, a mortgage and things of that nature, you may not be able to go all in, because if your family is important to you, which, 99.9% of people, it is important, you want to make sure that you can live out your dreams, but at the same time, not put a tremendous amount of risk on, as I said before, the things that are most important to you. So no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So kind of to daisy chain off of the last question, because we talked about lessons learned, business or just life, you learn lessons. However, a lot of people, they don't take advantage of having mentors or advisory boards, or however you would want to call it, i.e. individuals that can kind of point out initial potholes and say, hey, don't go down this road because this is what happened to me. Based off of your entrepreneurial journey, how important are mentors? How imperative were mentors and other business owners in your journey to kind of help you and guide you through your challenges and things of that nature?
Well, like I said, I never really, looking back, I'm not sure that I ever had a real formal mentor, someone that said, hey, Fred, I'm going to kind of take you under my wing. I'm going to, teach you all these things and, make you into the great entrepreneur that I can see you.
Right.
But what I did have is that a lot of people out there that were willing to share kind of nuggets of information with me. And I pretty early on recognized that, right? Because part of the thing about being an entrepreneur is whenever you start a business, whatever business that you're going to start, you really know very little about it, right? Because you've never run a business like that.
Right.
There are all kinds of pieces and elements to this business that you have no idea of. Even if you have a skill set, let's say you're an app developer and you're going to start a new app. Sure, you might know a lot about programming the app, but do you know a lot about marketing, right?
Right.
Do you know a lot about staffing, right? Do you know about how to get a good CEO for the company, or to be a good CEO, or be a good leader to the company? So there's a lot of things that you don't know, and I think, especially in the areas where you don't have expertise, it's really important to get people around you that do have that expertise and to share. So even today, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, but I talk constantly with other people that are running other companies. And sometimes I talk with a good buddy of mine runs a high-tech company, completely different arena that I'm in. But he has a lot of information on, let's say, if there's a new technology that I'm thinking about, going into, he can tell me about it, right? He can tell me through experience, not just, oh, I like this or not. He can tell me, wow, when we use that, this is what happened to us. Or when, we use something similar, this is what happened to us. And there's so many times in life that I've avoided making extremely bad decisions based not on anything that I thought. I wasn't able to kind of look at the situation and analyze the situation and say, wow, this is a good thing to do.
Right.
But I was able to just kind of reflect on a conversation that I had with someone, another business leader who was in a similar position, and see or recognize the mistake that they made by going into in the decision that they made. And it will guide me through. I can tell you that there was a couple of partnerships that I was going to get into with Media Takeout. And the partnerships looked great. On paper, everything looked great. The counterparty looked really great.
Right.
But I had a bunch of conversations with people that ran similar businesses for me in the past. And they explained the pitfalls to really watch out for. And they weren't obvious. Just had I not had this conversation with this person, another business leader, I would never have known that there was a giant pitfall that was right there in front of me.
Right.
But I was going through the negotiations, and we were kind of there, and we were almost at the point where we were going to sign the deals and close it and do everything. The conversations from this business leader were just in my head, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to pass, not because I think it's a bad idea, but because I recognize what this other person, not necessarily a quote-unquote mentor, but a person that I respected their opinion, what they thought of situations like this. And this happened to me a couple of times, and the one that I'm talking about in particular, I avoided this decision, and it would have been a tremendous mistake for the company to have gone forward with it. Okay. I wasn't able to see it. I wasn't able to perceive it. I wasn't able to do anything. But the advice that I got from someone, business leader that had no reason to, even give me this other than, we were relatively friendly, that saved me a lot of headaches. So I would say, when you're out there, what you really want to do is, it's hard to find a mentor that's going to actually kind of take you from point A to point B.
Right.
So people that are able to do that and they're able to find them, if you can find one, great, take it, stick with that person and hold on to them dearly. But if you can't, I think, try and talk to a lot of people. Talk to people that are your colleagues, talk to people that are your peers, talk to people that are running similar companies, talk to people that are working in similar companies, and just try and get as much information as you can out of them.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of, actually, that kind of shifted my thought process when it comes to finding quote unquote mentors. Because one of the things that you hit on was the availability of these mentors. I mean, we're all busy, whether it's running Fortune 500 companies or being executive directors or being just entrepreneurs. So our time, even though we all have 24 hours in a day, it's so much demand on our time where someone like myself who wanted to touch base with, let's say, a Les Brown, so to speak, Mr. Brown's schedule is probably so crazy that I wouldn't be able to get in contact with him, or he won't be as available. But to your point, ask other individuals who are experts in their field. So you can have a advisory board by just talking to people in different industries and can give you their great advice, because mistakes are the biggest lessons and the greatest pieces of advice. So if someone said, hey, I lost, $250,000 on this deal, I need to listen to that person just to kind of say, all right, what happened? Well, first of all, are you okay sharing this information? If you are, can you kind of give me a little bit of insight on what happened and what you learned from it? Because I may not be in that situation right now, but if it's parallel, I can always go back and say, you know, I talked to this person. I'm getting this type of feeling based off of this deal. It looks like it's the same thing that, you know, Mr. Johnson said. Let me kind of look at it a little bit deeper or pull out, because, you know, history repeats itself. So you never want to be in a situation where you learn something, a valuable lesson from someone, and then you go down that same road and fall into the same situation, you know. Based off of that, the next question I want to ask you, what's the best piece of advice someone has told you that you hold near and dear to you and you still use to this day?
Probably the best piece of advice that I've gotten comes from Wendy Williams. Right? Okay. He said that you really have to focus on your audience, or and this works for consumers, right? Like, so often we're always kind of looking at the middlemen, the people that can kind of put you on, the people that can kind of get you in position. But that's all that, you know, one, those people may or may not put you in position. Right. Two, if they do, they might be gone. So they might only be able to put you in a position for a short period of time. If you build a strong bond and a strong relationship with your audience, or with your consumer, you really have something there. You really have something that's deep and something that can't be taken away by anyone, right? Now, you've kind of bypassed the entire, I mean, part of being an entrepreneur is, you know, bucking this system, right? There's this system, there's this, you know, corporate hierarchy that I don't like. I want to get away from all of that and kind of do my own thing. So that's part of what being an entrepreneur is. But you have to accept, if that's what you're looking to do and you're trying to buck the system, you really have to always, every move that you make has to be kind of go around the system, right? To go around whatever blocks that you have between you and your audience, or you and your consumers, you have to kind of go around them. And that has to always be your focus. And I think in the beginning, when you're starting a new company, it's always there. But as you kind of grow, as you get, you know, it's not just you and your computer and, you know, your business plans. Now you have a staff. Right. Now you have a company. It's hard to kind of keep your eye on that. But that's what it's about. It's about, you know, continually building that audience and continually building that bond with your audience. And so that's with every company that I've ever been a part of, and certainly with Media Takeout, the number one goal and the number one thing that I think about every day when I wake up is how to build a stronger bond between the company and the audience, or the company. And I think so long as you think that way from beginning to end, and every day you wake up and you think like that, I think you're on the right track. Once you stop, and like I said, once it gets a little harder to think like that, when, you know, you have other people in your ear talking, and when you have kind of a big organization around you, it becomes a little harder like that. But so long as you can focus on the audience or your consumer, I think you'll be doing fine.
Okay, great. The next question, this is one that I love to ask all of my guests. If you had the opportunity to talk to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give to Fred, who's 21, 22, 23 years old?
That's a good question. And I'm not sure at 21 years old I would have listened to very much. So I probably would tell him something like, you know, buy Google stock or buy Amazon. Like that. That I think would have been very valuable information. I think any kind of business things, I was the kind of person that I needed to learn the lessons the hard way. And I'm grateful to learn the lessons the hard way. And they really have built a strong foundation in my entrepreneurship. So I am very confident now to say that I am a extremely good entrepreneur. If, you know, I'm running Media Takeout, which is fine, and I'm loving it right now, and everything is going well. But there's very little doubt in my mind that I couldn't start another business tomorrow and make it a successful business. Maybe not as successful as Media Takeout, but a very successful business. And that's because of the foundation that I have. And so when a foundation like that does not come easy. A foundation like that does not come through, you know, something that somebody told you or something someone done it. It only comes through experience, and experience is a lot of mistakes. Some things that went well, but mistakes. I mean, entrepreneurship is like baseball, right? Like if you're a baseball player and you get out 2 out of 3 times, you're a great baseball player, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Entrepreneurship works kind of the same way, right? Like if you're wrong 2/3 of the time as an entrepreneur, you're doing a very good job.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Last question. What's next for you? Where do you see yourself in the next maybe 5 to 10 years that you can talk about? I know sometimes when it comes to business dealings, you want to make sure that the deals stay, the confidentiality piece. I definitely understand that. But, as an entrepreneur, what are other endeavors can you see yourself getting into in the next, 5 to 10 years? Once again, that you can disclose.
Right. Well, I've always kind of played with the idea of going and starting a hard tech company. I think, media takeout uses technology, but it's really WordPress and some other stuff. And it's really the foundation of media takeout is the content, right? So media takeout is more of a content company and not a tech company. I've always talked about and, wondered about what it would be like to start a hard tech company, a company that uses sophisticated technology. And I've had the opportunity to, we're working on, and we've been working on for the last year or so, a company that uses machine learning and artificial intelligence to edit videos. And we're in the process of kind of putting it together and launching it. And hopefully we'll be able to launch it in the next couple of weeks.
Nice.
It's been an exciting time to kind of move from this strict content play that I've been making into kind of a harder tech play. And especially in the area of artificial intelligence, which I truly believe is the future for us. I mean, when I left the laundry spa and started Media Takeout, I came into the world of blogs. And I think at the time, everyone was like, what are these things called blogs? How important are they going to be? I think now, at the time, no one really, or very few people really understood how transformative it was going to be in the world of media. Now I think it's pretty obvious to people. But I think the same way that the blogs were going to completely transform media, I think artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to completely revolutionize the way that we do almost everything. I think, you see it when you think about automated cars. I think when people think about artificial intelligence, they think about a robot, right? Like some robot's going to come and take over the world. And yes, that's part of it. But I think that's kind of the part that's kind of far away. But artificial intelligence and machine learning could be used for a number of different things. Like I think a lot of people hear about self-driving cars, right? How does a car drive itself? Well, a car takes a bunch of inputs, right? And it has a bunch of scenarios, right? What do you do when a car stops in front of you? Right. And there are a series of different things that it can do. It builds all of that into an algorithm. And because of the great, before it was almost impossible, you'd have to have a computer the size of the globe to compute those algorithms. Now, because of the computing power has gotten so much greater and the cost has come down so much, you can do a lot more things, and a lot of things that people might not really understand that can be done right now through artificial intelligence. So computers right now, today, can drive a car better than you and I can. Right now, today, computers can do most operations better than just about all the surgeons in the world.
Wow.
This is today. This isn't tomorrow. This isn't, what's coming, where it's going to be. This is today. So where the world is going to be tomorrow and a year, 5 years, 10 years, I think it's really going to change the way that I think a lot of people really understand what can be done by a computer.
Nice.
And so it's really an exciting time to kind of be in it. We're going in. CrowdShot uses artificial intelligence specifically for video editing, but there's a bunch of really, really interesting and really cool things that it can do. And I just can't wait to launch it and introduce it to everyone and show them exactly what the product can do.
Well, I definitely can't wait to see what you have in store. So I wanted to say, thank you again for your time, your effort, and your energy. So I learned a lot based off of this interview. So I definitely appreciate it. So I'm not sure if you had any farewells or any last words, anything like that. But the floor is yours. If not,
well, I think that's it. I mean, I think it's great what you're doing here. I think, I always want to encourage more entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs of color. I think it's incredibly important that we take advantage of all these opportunities. Like I said, I mean, I told you that the artificial intelligence and machine learning revolution is coming. It's here right now. You hear about it a little bit in the next 2, 3, 4 years. You're going to hear about it like you hear about the internet. You're going to hear about it on social media. It is here right now, and I would love for more people of color, entrepreneurs of color, to kind of come onto this side. It's hard tech. It's a little bit difficult for people to go, but there are plenty of people that are listening to this right now that have the kind of backgrounds to come into this arena. And I think if we can all get into this arena early enough, I think it could do a lot for us to actually be at the forefront of a tech revolution.
Nice, Fred. Once again, I definitely appreciate your time and effort. So you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.